Hey everyone, Will Brink here, brinkzone.com. Topic I want to cover again. I'm going outside my normal topics of what I'm known for, health and fitness and weight loss and anti-aging and supplements and all that, with some side tracks into reviews of some gear if you've seen that. I actually just did a video on censorship, which I experienced just recently, and so maybe that was my first sort of foray, or to sort of break out of my normal mold and maybe cover some some other topics. My allergies are bothering me today, so if I clear my throat, the wind is blowing around a lot, so when that happens, stuff gets in my big nose here. So I want to cover a topic. Again, very hot topic, very controversial topic. But I'll do my best to cover it in hopefully my normal, objective way, and that is how to debate or how to talk with gun nuts. Now, the first way to do that is to not call them a gun nut. That just shuts the door down instantaneously, right? Anytime you open up a conversation, discussion, no matter how well you're intentioned or whatever, by calling somebody a name, in this particular case, a gun nut, the door is shut. Now, if you just want to get into a fight, a flame war and whatever, and that's your intent, well, then call them whatever you want, and they'll call you things back too. They'll call you a gun grabber and, all that. So, point being, if your actual intent is to talk with somebody, debate with somebody, discuss with somebody, very rare these days, where all everybody seems to want to do is talk at each other, talk past each other, and all that. But regardless, if that's your intent, is to have an actual discussion in some attempt to sway them about something, and this is an important topic, certainly in the U.S., because of, we all know why it's an important topic. It is worldwide, but, the U.S. gets the most attention, but I mean, it's a topic that's real anywhere you go. So, first things first, don't call them a gun nut or anything like that, okay? Either don't call them anything or call them, a Second Amendment supporter or, avid gunner or whatever you want. But so that's number one. Let's just get that right out of the, let's just get that right out of the thing. Now, I'm going to cover some of the big ones. There's so many different sort of angles that we could cover. I can't cover them all. I don't even want to try. But I'm going to cover what I think are the big ones that if you want to talk to, people that are very pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment, all that, that would help you get through to them, or at least have them not shut down on you and be willing to talk with you about this topic, okay? Now, some of them are going to take some getting into, because these are not simple topics. That would also be anybody's mistake, would be to think whose position on a pro-gun control person, somebody, if they think this is a simple topic and they treat it like a simple topic, well, again, the door's going to close. Anybody who is well-read on the topic of guns, firearms, Second Amendment, whatever, knows this is a complex topic that has nuances and context and all. So some of this I'll be able to just get right through and just say, it's like this and done. A few of them we're going to have to take a little bit of a journey into. The first one we're going to have to take a little bit of a journey into, and I'm telling you absolutely what will shut off a pro Second Amendment gun supporter type person. I will tell you that when the door will just completely shut down. One of them is they would like the people that are trying to debate with them or sway them, they would like them to actually know something about guns. I don't know why, but it seems to me, I can't really think of another topic, well, maybe there's a few, but let's stick with this one, where people can have very strong, defined, dogmatic opinions on guns without knowing anything about guns. And sometimes they will say something, well, that doesn't matter, something. I will tell you that, again, from the position of the people if you want to have an actual discussion, and sway them and have them, listen to you versus shutting down, they would like those people to know something about guns. I know this seems very simple to me, but, and I'll give you some examples, because I think some people, I maybe, would think, well, why should I have to know? Look, and I'm going to stick with things that are safety based, because I think I think the parallels are fairly legit. Okay, if I'm going to, I own a car, it does 180 miles an hour. It's a very fast car. It's a sport car. Somebody gets on the TV and says, look, I think we should limit the access to those cars. They're four-wheel drive. They use rocket fuel. And, they run on 3 tires. They're very dangerous. Now, and you're going to say, well, nobody would ever say that. Well, I can tell you, and I will give you some examples, that people who are, and we're talking congressmen, senators, whatever, who are very adamant about controlling guns, will say things that incorrect about guns. So, would you take advice? Would somebody who said that about cars sway you or break through your own barrier to listen to them, to say something about that? The answer for me is no. You have lost all credibility when you literally think a sports car runs on 3 wheels and rocket fuel, and so on and so on. For me, I can't speak for you. For me, you're done. We have nothing to talk about. Okay, planes. Planes is a big deal. Obviously, we all want safe planes. If planes aren't running or aren't flying well, aren't taken care of, it kills a lot of people. And if somebody came to me in a talk or was on TV or whatever and said, look, I think we need to limit the amount of planes people can get on or what have you, or own, because, those propellers are dangerous, and, they don't have any wheels, and the seats fall out, and whatever. And somebody said, hey, we haven't used propeller planes in any real way in a long time. We use jets now. They all have wheels. I don't know what you're talking about. I can't speak for you. For me, again, you have zero credibility with me at this point. If you really don't know that little about the topic, I do not see how you expect anyone to take you seriously. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I'm not even a little exaggerating. I saw a hearing on, and I don't remember if it was a congressman or senator, but he held up an AR with a pistol brace on it, and said, this pistol, because they did try to ban them. I think they're not banned right now. Anyway, he held this thing up, and he said, this pistol brace makes this AR fully automatic. Now, I would hope you're rolling your eyes, because if you're not, and you're not sure what that means, you're in this category of people that you can't debate or talk with people that know the topic, and they don't. Or you don't, whatever. And when somebody like a congressman or somebody who literally runs a gun control group or something like that, this is literally their focus every day of their life, to control guns, ban guns, whatever, does not know anything about guns, how do you expect anybody to listen to you? You just shouldn't. You can't. Now, and remember, these people have access to people who know a lot about guns. There's no lack of experts they could hire, or talk to or whatever to know the basics. I mean, I'm not even asking someone to be, as well informed as somebody, but I mean, I can think of no other topic where a congressman or a senator or whatever, or somebody who is very pro-gun control, whoever they are, to know that little about the topic they are so passionate about or whatever. I don't think that's asking a lot, but I'm going to just warn you that if you want to debate, talk with people that are strongly, pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment, what have you, all they ever really, they would just at least like you to know something about the topic beyond they go boom. I'm not exaggerating in the least as to how little most people, whether they're politicians, whether they run gun control groups or whatever, it is astonishing how little they know about the basics of guns, the very basics. I'm not talking about, and there are some complicated stuff. It wasn't, Oh, I mean, and the reason why I made this video, I had lunch with a friend of mine the other day. And again, this is one of those people that we're kind of on, some things we agree with on certain political things, where some things we're very far apart. And guns was one of them. And I don't know how it came up, how these things come up. And, he said, well, I just think those guns that go, bang, 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 and kill a lot of people should be banned. And I said, you mean like fully automatic? And he said, yeah, those. And I said, those have been illegal since in the 60s. Oh, well, humana. That's all I'm saying. So I don't think, if you're watching this and you think it's unreasonable to be debating any topic at all, with fervor, with passion, that has life and death consequences that are under the Constitution of the country you live in and so on, without knowing anything about them, I obviously, I think, again, I will tell you, what I can tell you 100% of the time is the gun person you're trying to speak with, you're trying to debate with, you're trying to sway, the door is closed. The door will just close. They just roll their eyes and go, holy crap, this guy just told me that, a shotgun, has the same killing power as a nuke. Okay? So, I'm happy to, you can add your 2 cents below this video as to like where I went with this. I don't think I'm being unreasonable. So, but regardless of whether you think I'm being reasonable or not, what I'm telling you again is if you are trying to talk with somebody and you're trying to sway them, I can tell you that is where the door will close. Okay? So that's up to you, whether you care or not. If you don't care, you don't care. I'm trying to give you ammo, pun intended, on how to talk with, a rational conversation with people that are very pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment, whatever you want to call it. Second one, or third one, another big one. This is a biggie. Again, the effect of what you'll do here will have the opposite effect of what you think is going to happen, which is don't compare the U.S. to other countries ever, for a number of reasons. For one, that one's actually a fairly complicated topic. You obviously can cherry pick one country compared to the USA. They have less guns and less murders or whatever. If you go into the literature and you start not cherry picking and you start looking at bigger number of the countries, again, I'm not gonna try to force a position on you. I will just tell you that if you do spend time looking at the literature, you look at what some of the researchers who don't cherry pick, who look across the whole world, and so on and so forth, it's quite different. What you find is there are some countries that actually have more guns than the U.S. and less crime. Not a lot, but there are a few. There are some that have about an equal amount with less crime, and on it goes. So that one is, again, for the gun enthusiast, the big gun supporter, two-way supporter. The minute you start to do that again, you are going to get, I'm not going to say the door absolutely just shuts off as far as compared to some of the other stuff, but depending on what you say, like, we should just be like England. You're going to lose it. Two, so that's one of them. The data is not nearly as, again, mostly both sides, I'm going to say both sides, do cherry pick. But if you don't cherry pick, and again, you take some time to dive into it, you will find that the data is not nearly as clear as you would think it is. Honestly, I will tell you right now that most gun owners who pay attention to this and research this topic or whatever, they see other countries as a cautionary tale to not follow. The opposite is, this is why I'm telling you, you will literally get the opposite reaction of what you might have thought when you say, aha, we need to be more like Denmark. They have less guns and less crime, and I gotcha. And most people who are specifically in the U.S., of course, and that is the opposite reaction you're going to get, which is, to them, that is a cautionary tale to not follow the U.K., who, again, we could get into statistics, like after they basically had a big gun banning, it didn't help crime. In fact, it went up for a while, and then it came back down. They have a big knife problem, yada, yada, yada. So it's not going to get you anywhere. I'm just warning you, whether you feel that way. Remember, we're not talking about how you feel. We're talking about whether you want to have a rational, fact-based discussion with somebody who is pro-gun and sway them. It doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree or not. I will finish to say that the way that it's viewed, and it's true, Mark Twain said that, there's three kinds of lies. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. And anybody who's, and I read statistical papers all the time, mostly in nutrition and health and all that, but other stuff, we all know the nature of statistics, okay? And statistics are not useless. Statistics have their uses and their benefits and all that, but there are also times when two people can look at the exact same statistics and come to different conclusions. So that whole area just isn't going to get you anywhere, okay? And they will throw statistics back at you from their side. They're going to point out that on average, not all the time, but on average, cities with the strictest gun control laws have the most crime, and so on and so on. So you're not going to get anywhere with it. Okay, that's all I'm going to tell you. Okay, so let's get past that one. Here's another big one. The typical, again, gun owner, gun enthusiast person who is very dogmatic about the Second Amendment and all that. As far as they're concerned, any of the major gun control groups, gun control advocates, that kind of thing, their ultimate goal is to ban all guns. That is basically where they're coming from. And so again, this may help you if you're somebody who, it doesn't understand why they aren't more flexible in gun control, or, quote unquote, I'm going to put in air quotes, common sense gun control, because that's really not a term as far as they see it. But from your perspective, you're trying to talk with them, you're trying to sway them, you're trying to understand them as to why they are so intransigent about making any changes. Well, from their perspective, basically the ultimate goal of all of these groups or whatever is the total removal of guns. And they're not wrong. That's the problem. Now, I'm going to go back to my friend the other day when we were talking about guns, and he said, so I told him that, full automatic weapons had been illegal, in the U.S. since, I think, 60s. It was 60s. I forget, it was 67, I think, but whatever, 60s. And he said, well, whatever. I just mean those guns that, are used to kill a lot of people, like really easily. And I said, okay, well, look, you're talking about, and I'm intentionally leading him. I'm going to be honest. Again, I kind of set him into, I'm intentionally putting him into a trap because I know everything he's thinking is going to say before he even says it, because I've been doing this a long time. So I said, okay, so what you mean is like those military style, AR guns. Yeah, those. That's what I'm talking about. Those need to be banned. And I said, do you realize that according to the government statistics, it's not pro-gun statistics, this is I think CDC or whatever, or FBI, I think it's FBI. I said, do you realize that those guns are used in 3% of murders? Remember, we're not talking about suicides, we're not talking about, any of that. We're talking about, what we really care about, murder, right? That's the thing that matters. I said, you realize that as of 2022, I think, I don't know about 2020, I said those, regardless of the news, regardless of the horrible stuff you see, I said that those guns are used in about 3% of the murders. And I said further, he was just about to go up. I said, furthermore, that's all rifles. So that's all rifles. So I don't even know what percent AR patterned rifles, i.e. military style rifles, and they're not, but another topic. I said, I don't even know what percent they make up in that 3%, but I don't know, call it 2%. I said, you know what? I'm just gonna even it. Let's just make it 5%. 5% of those guns are used to kill people. I said the other 95% are with handguns and pistols. And he said, well, then we need to ban those too. I said, okay. So what you're saying is we just need to ban all guns. Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. I just think that. I said, well, look, if 95% are pistols, what you think we should ban, because they are responsible for the vast majority of deaths, and the other 5% comes from rifles, and I'm just giving you 2%, what are you left with? Slingshots? Oh, well, again, he had no answer, of course, and he just humming his way out of it. Well, I just think we need to focus more on you know the right people having them and something, which is a different talk. But anyway, I said, look, just be honest about it. You don't want just the quote unquote bad guns, military style weapons taken. You want all of them removed in your heart of hearts. And he did. And to be honest with you, that is exactly how most people who study this and talk with some of these people back and forth, when they say things like, well, they're not coming for your guns and all that, they don't believe you because they know that they are. They would. If they had a magic wand, they know that this person would wave their magic wand at from, and I'm going to change the topic just a little bit. You'll notice that again today, the big push is again on this banning of ARs and quote unquote military style rifles and something. In the 90s, the biggest gun control group that had the most funding was called Handgun Control. And their entire spiel was 98, and this I think handguns made even more, were responsible for even higher number of murders, so like 98%. But anyway, Handgun Control, you can look them up on Google. They morphed into, I think, they morphed into sort of combined with another group, but they were called Handgun Control. Their entire spiel was handguns are responsible for the vast majority of deaths. We're not coming for the rifles. We don't care about the rifles. We just want to control the handguns. And the owner of it, he's still around. I think his son, I hope I'm not wrong about this, I think his son, I think he accidentally shot himself, which, by the way, is very rare. Anytime some kid does it, it's horrible. It's a tragedy, and it can be prevented, and that's another topic. But anyway, I think his son died from an accidental, and he kind of made that his life mission. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But anyway, I can tell you that, oddly enough, in the 90s, early 90s, Handgun Control had completely, were focusing on what really does kill people, statistically speaking, and they didn't want the rifles. Well, somehow, obviously some high-profile deaths take place, in schools, and that's a whole other conversation as to how that could be reduced and prevented and all that, but, we don't have time for that. But anyway, so the point is, they do not, those who are supporting gun ownership, the Second Amendment, all that, from the get-go, assume, because they're usually right, I have to be honest with you, that those people saying, we just want common sense gun control, we just want to ban that, we just want to control this one, their ultimate goal was to remove all of them. And hence, you can see that they're not going to budge. They don't care if... So this is why, from your perspective, because you're trying to say, well, how come they resist... and I don't want to debate what is common sense gun control, because that's another topic. But regardless, you may be saying, how come they're resisting just banning this thing? What's the big deal? That's why. Because they know, and they're not wrong, that that one thing will not change the crime rates. It's not going to save anybody, and so the next thing comes along. And so they have, for the most part, stopped being flexible at all. Okay? Here's what I think. I think that if the pro-gun control politicians and organizations and whatever made a public position and statement that said, we absolutely support the right of Americans to own firearms by the Constitution, and we will always support that, and, in some language that gun owners and gun supporters believed, and then they could meet somewhere in the middle, things would change. I can guarantee you right now, I'm giving the answer out to all of them. I would tell you it would take a long time before they believed it. It would take a long time before the trust existed and all that. But until that time, there is not going to be any movement by, regardless of our gun. Well, I guess we could also just include, those gun support, groups, NRA, Second Amendment Foundation, those two. There will be no movement, nothing, if they don't even believe that the people that are trying to take this right away, and it is a right, capital R, from them, ultimate goal is not to ban everything, because that is basically how they see it. And it doesn't matter, again, whether you believe it or not. What matters is whether they do. If you want to have a rational discussion on guns and gun control and, saving lives and all that good stuff. It doesn't matter what if you want to have a reasonable conversation with them. If you don't, you don't. You say, hey, you gun nut, you just want guns and, and ARs and nukes and blah, 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 blah. That's a different, that's a different thing. I'm just telling you what you need to know if you have any interest at all. Now, when somebody again just says, "Oh, you gun nut," they're not coming for your guns. They're coming for those guns. Look, it takes 2 seconds to go literally Google up where some politician or a gun control person or whatever, whether they're at a talk, whether they're on YouTube or whatever, will just say, "Yay, if it was up to me, I'd ban them all," because they're not hard to find. They really do exist. So you get absolutely nowhere with the sentence. Well, they're not. They're not looking to ban all your guns. They're just looking to ban that one. So let's move on. I could say a lot about this, as you can see. But anyway, hopefully I got my point across. So, but be honest. Like I say, be honest about what your goals are. Be dead honest. Don't be wishy-washy and say, well, I only want to ban the bad ones. I only want to ban the military-style ones. That just closes the door. Again, they know that you haven't done your homework. They know you wouldn't know a military AR from a civilian rifle. They know they could put a .223 bullet in front of you and a 308 and you wouldn't know the difference, and you have basically lost them. Okay, so here's one. This shouldn't take long. Gun violence. Think about this. The term. Gun violence is an invented term. It's an invented term to brainwash people into cause and effect every time they hear this term. There is no such thing as gun violence. There is just violence. And every time they use this term gun violence, again, if you want to have a reasonable conversation and you want to sway people, as soon as you hear that, again, the door is shutting pretty fast, because gun violence is an invented term. Okay? No, go look up, you'll be kind of surprised by this. Go look up how many people are stabbed to death by a screwdriver. Okay, how many people are hit by car? Nobody calls it car violence. Violence is violence. Nobody has ever stood at a funeral of somebody they lost and said, well, at least he wasn't shot. I mean, gee, at least he was only stabbed to death. That's the good news. Okay, I'm not going to go on about that too long, but just understand how manipulated you are by term. Words matter, especially if you keep repeating them over and over and over and over again. Yes, guns as the tool for a violent act are too common in the U.S. That I don't disagree with that. Most of them, the vast majority, remember, are teenage gun gangbangers killing each other, and so forth. But just understand that is a very manipulative term that doesn't mean anything. No gun, and this is like the joke gun owners will say, I'm looking at my gun and it still hasn't gone off. How come it isn't leaping off the table and killing people? This is like what they will say when you mention, gun violence. So just keep this in mind, that those that are trying to control, what people will say is, again, gun control is not about guns, it's about control. And so terminology and getting things into your head are a big part of that. And the term gun violence means absolutely nothing. And if you don't use it, if you're trying to have a rational conversation with somebody and get through to them and change their mind or sway them about the importance of whatever you find important in the topic, don't use the term gun violence. Okay, use the term violence is illegal, murder is illegal. There's no magical changes with the tool used. Anyway, so I'm not going to go on that one too long. This is a big one. This is the next one. This is a biggie. It may take a little time, but I think it's a very interesting conversation. The people that say, well, okay, you have a right to the guns, you have a right to your arms, but, the person is saying to you, the gun owner is saying, well, guns, are there in the Second Amendment, in the Constitution by the founders as a check and a balance to enemies, domestic and foreign, and it's a check and a balance to, overreach and all that. And the response that people like to do is, well, you'll never win against the U.S. military anyway, so it's a waste of time. Oh boy, that one again is what that one. That one doesn't always just shut the door, and the person who's a big supporter just sort of says, just walks away. That one doesn't always completely shut the door, but again, it exposes you. Excuse me. It exposes you in that you don't understand the reasoning and the history and the logic of this. So I'm going to I'm going to try my best to just kind of cover this. For one thing, when you say you'll never win against the military, it's not even worth it, that they've got tanks and so on. Okay, one, are you an expert in guerrilla warfare, urban warfare, asymmetrical warfare? Are you a student of history? If the answer is no, then again you are back to the person in the beginning who doesn't know anything about guns and is talking about things you don't know anything about. Because for one thing, history is replete with examples, modern examples, like yesterday examples of small groups of highly motivated people basically kicking the shit out of highly sophisticated large militaries. So it happens all the time, frankly. Two, if you're a student of history, especially if you understand civil wars, because that would be a civil war, right? I don't know what would bring it, and I hope it doesn't happen. I'm not one of those people that, has any interest. I think anybody that talks about civil war or whatever does not know how bad civil wars are. Civil wars are also always the worst war any country's going to face. But civil wars, if you understand the history of them, it's not going to line up. It doesn't line up again with a bunch of civilians with their guns and the military over here. No, even among the military, they're going to fracture. There's going to be some of them that take the side of the civilians and are on their side. There's going to be some that don't. It is the most horrifically messy, nasty, dirty war that you could have, and it doesn't. Well, the bottom line is, like I say, it was not going to be anything you think it's going to be, and they are always the ugliest, deadliest forms of war. And two, again, politically speaking and stuff, people in the military, which I do, the vast majority of them are probably going, if they pick a side, they're probably going to pick the side of the gun owners who are more like them politically and, tribalistically and all that, because we are just a tribalist society. And at the end of the day, remember that the whole idea of as far as the founders of the country were concerned and all that, the entire concept of an armed civilian population, it was again as a check and a balance it's the nuclear option. It's the last possible option. But at the end of the day, if a government does go totalitarian or fascist or whatever, it's a check and a balance to keeping them from trying it, from even going that way. I think it is effective. Again, it has its downsides. Everything has downsides. There's no such thing as a perfect solution. But that is the basic concept. And you have to also remember the founders of the country, at least most of them, I don't know about all of them, but most of them did not want or like a standing army. They were against standing armies because a standing army can again turn its weapons to you. And so, again, as a check and a balance to what was clearly going to be a growing and continuous standing army, of which we now have the most powerful standing army in the whole world, that was, again, considered something of a check and a balance to it. Now, you've got to read up on that, and you've got to understand it. If you don't understand it, the entire purpose of it, and what it meant to them and all that, again, you're not really going to have a great argument. The bottom line, though, again, when people say, well, you wouldn't win against the military anyway, so why even consider it, would be viewed by them, the people, not all of them, I'm just speaking in general, but it would be viewed as sort of those, again, who are on that side of Second Amendment and the reason that they feel the right of people to own those firearms is essential to the check and the balances and all that. At the end of the day, it doesn't. I'm trying to figure out how to say this right. It doesn't absolutely matter if you win or not. Okay, now I'm going to quote Winston Churchill here, who really hit it right at the head. If the worst case scenario is, you as a civilian or whatever are not going to win, this fight against whatever forces are coming after you. Winston Churchill said, if you will not fight for the right when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory is sure and not too costly, you may come to the moment when you will have to fight with all the odds against you and only a precarious chance of survival. There may be even a worse case. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory, because it is better to perish than to live as slaves. And he is absolutely right. Again, I just finished a book or a story, because I write fiction. I just wrote a historical fiction on that has to do with the character is in a Nazi concentration camp. And I did, again, I've always been a history nerd, and I researched the topic a fair amount, but I did a lot of research for this one. And that quote, as far as I'm concerned, has never been truer. There are many fates worse than death. And I will tell you what, if the worst comes down to the worst case where you don't make it, but you don't end up in that situation, well, I agree with Winston Churchill. I don't know where you stand on it, but from my perspective and their perspective, again, this is who I'm assuming you want to have this debate with. That's how they're going to view it. Now, that's, some of that, as always, is, saber rattling and other things, but I'm just telling you, they're not seeing this check and this balance and all that as a, we'll just overwhelm the military or whatever and win. You may not, and that's the bottom line there. So let's get on to something less depressing. But just don't use the you're an idiot because you'd lose against the military anyway, because you don't know that. And I will tell you this. Let me add you another thing. There is the people that are experts, which I know people that were in Delta. I know guys who were in SEAL Team 6. I know some very knowledgeable people about things like urban warfare and guerrilla warfare and and that kind of thing. You'll never hear them say that. Not a one will say, there's no reason for us to resist. There's no reason for people out there to be armed because the government will just wipe you out. If they're not saying it, don't say it. Okay. Here's another one. This is for non-Americans. It applies to some Americans too, but it applies to non-Americans mostly. Again, this is an international. Obviously, we're on the internet, so there's this international community on the internet, and this is in some degree mostly geared to the non-Americans. Don't try to understand American gun culture. Okay, if you don't have one and you don't understand it, don't try to understand gun culture through the eyes of social media and the media in general, because you're not going to understand it. You have to understand how the country started. The country began basically by an overreaching which was their government at the time. The British monarchy, overreaching and overtaxing them and taking their weapons and treating them badly, and them resisting with arms and making a country. The very country founded on resisting and throwing out an overreaching country that they felt was... and so from that new nation began basically an experiment that has never existed and does not exist anywhere else in the world. The U.S. Constitution is quite unique in that respect. So you have to understand that in the U.S., guns represent something. Guns unto themselves are not the issue. Guns are representative of freedom, of liberty, of individual, and this is a big one again, that does not exist in the same way. Individual liberty does not exist in the same way anywhere that I'm aware of. And so you have to understand it, the focus on guns, and that doesn't mean, again, there's lots of Americans that just really like their guns, they enjoy them, they have fun with them, they hunt, whatever that may be. But you have to understand it's not about guns. Guns represent something, right? Versus onto themselves. If we had started the U.S. and made it the most powerful nation in the world, with forks, well, forks would be, it's viewed as a tool of freedom and liberty. So you have to understand the bigger picture. But I think whenever I travel and I start talking to people and they get to know me, I'll have a rational conversation with them, and they try to say, I don't understand why you Americans are so fixated on guns. And I try to explain to them that they're not fixated on guns per se. They're fixated on what they represent, which is freedom, liberty. Now, we can debate that, as its own topic, but just understand that's what's going on. That is the culture part of the U.S. gun culture. Now, I did say this, this does involve some Americans, too, who don't get it. They don't have an excuse not to get it. Foreigners outside the U.S., I can understand why they might not understand the gun culture. People in the U.S. have no excuse. This is, as far as I'm concerned, that's a failure of the education system and explaining it to them. But I will say it does still apply to some Americans who just don't get it. It doesn't matter. I am assuming, again, if you're watching this and you're saying, well, I want to understand and I want to be able to debate and maybe alter their position, then you need to understand that this is American who wants to talk to somebody that is very supportive of gun ownership and Second Amendment and all that. You have to understand what is the basis of the culture so that you aren't calling them gun nuts and thinking all they do is sit around, thinking about guns. And some do, I'm sure. They like their guns. What am I going to say? I guess that's it. We're on to 40 minutes here, so I'm not going to... There's a whole bunch of other way I could go on. If you have other ones that I didn't cover, put them below. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe and like, and I'll see you guys on the Brink Zone. Now you are armed, again, pun intended, to have a rational, objective, knowledge-based discussion with those who are very supportive of gun ownership and the Second Amendment and all that. And I hope it helped. See ya.